My husband calls me paranoid for checking his phone every day, but I just want honesty. He says I should trust him, but his secrecy makes me wonder. From the outside, my husband and I seem like a normal couple. We've been married for 5 years, and at first, our relationship felt unbreakable. He was attentive, affectionate, and always made me feel secure. But over time, something shifted. It wasn't a sudden change, not an obvious betrayal. It was subtle, creeping in like a shadow that grew darker each day. At first, I ignored it. I told myself I was overthinking, that I was just being insecure. After all, he hadn't done anything, had he? But then, small things started happening. Things that didn't sit right. Things I couldn't ignore. It started with his phone. He had always been casual about it before, leaving it on the coffee table, charging it in the kitchen, sometimes even forgetting where he put it. But suddenly, it was always with him. Even in the bathroom. Even when he slept, it was tucked under his pillow. I noticed the shift before I even admitted to myself that I was noticing it. Then came the silences. Conversations we once had effortlessly now felt strained. He would check his phone, smile slightly, then lock the screen before I could see anything. If I asked what was funny, he would shrug. Just a meme, he'd say. But he never showed me. He used to before. I told myself I was being ridiculous. Everyone has a right to privacy. Just because he wasn't sharing every detail of his day didn't mean something was wrong. But then he started turning off his notifications. His phone, once a constant source of little pings and vibrations, was now eerily silent unless he was looking at it. One night, I casually reached for it. Not to snoop, just to move it off the couch so I could sit. But the moment my fingers brushed the screen, he snatched it away so fast that I actually flinched. "What are you doing?" he asked, his voice too sharp for such a simple question. "I was just moving it," I said, watching the way his grip tightened around it. His body relaxed slightly, but there was a flicker of something in his eyes. Guilt? Fear? I couldn't tell. From that night on, my curiosity turned into suspicion. I started paying attention to his habits. The way he would angle his screen away from me. The way he would put his phone face down, even when he was across the room. The way he seemed distracted, even when we were together, like his mind was somewhere else. With someone else. And the passwords. One day, on impulse, I tried unlocking his phone while he was in the shower. I knew his old passcode. It had been the same for years. My birthday. But it didn't work. My heart pounded as I tried again. And again. Wrong. He had changed it. Without telling me. Without a reason. That was the moment I knew something was wrong. That night, I confronted him. "When did you change your passcode?" I asked as casually as I could. He barely looked up. "A while ago." "Why?" His eyes finally met mine, and for a moment I saw something flash through them. Annoyance? Amusement? I couldn't tell. "Why do you care?" he asked instead of answering. I felt my stomach tighten. "Because you've never done that before." He sighed, rubbing his temples. "It's just a passcode. Why are you making a big deal out of it?" Because it was a big deal. Because he never used to hide anything from me. Because people don't suddenly start keeping secrets for no reason. But I didn't say any of that. Instead, I just nodded, pretending to accept his explanation. But that night, when he fell asleep, I did something I had never done before. I checked his phone. I waited until I heard the deep, steady rhythm of his breathing, then carefully reached for his hand. My heart pounded as I pressed his finger against the sensor. The phone unlocked with a quiet click. I knew what I was doing was wrong. I knew that if he woke up and saw me, there would be no coming back from it. But at that moment, the need to know was stronger than anything else. I opened his messages. And what I found made my blood run cold. My fingers trembled as I scrolled through his messages. I wasn't even sure what I was looking for, just something, anything, that would explain why he had been acting so strangely. And then I found it. A name I didn't recognize. A conversation that had been carefully hidden, buried beneath dozens of work-related texts and casual group chats. But something about it felt off. I clicked on it. The messages weren't overtly romantic. No, I love you, or anything that could be considered undeniable proof of cheating. But there was an intimacy in the way they spoke. Inside jokes I had never heard before. Late-night messages. A familiarity that felt out of place. My stomach churned as I scrolled further. Her messages were playful, teasing. "You always know exactly what to say to make me smile. I swear, you're the only one who really gets me." His replies weren't flirtatious, but they weren't distant either. He was engaged. Present. More than he had been with me lately. "You're too easy to read." Haha, always make my day better. I swallowed hard. I kept scrolling, desperately searching for something that would make this all make sense, that would prove I was just overreacting. That I was, like he said, being paranoid. And then I saw it. A photo. She had sent him a selfie, nothing inappropriate, just her in a coffee shop, smiling at the camera. But it wasn't the picture that made my breath hitch. It was his response. A heart emoji. Not the standard thumbs up or the casual, nice, he always used with other people. A heart. A tiny, red, damning heart. I stared at the screen, my mind racing. This wasn't proof of an affair. It wasn't something I could confront him with and expect a confession. But it was something. Something he had hidden. Something he had been protecting so fiercely that he changed his passcode for the first time in years. I felt sick. I put the phone back exactly where I found it, my heart pounding so loudly I thought it might wake him. I lay beside him, staring at the ceiling, my thoughts spinning out of control. Was I overreacting? Was I making something out of nothing? Maybe they were just friends. Maybe I was reading too much into a simple emoji. But deep down, I knew the truth. He had been pulling away from me, and now I knew where he had been going. The next morning, I tried to act normal. I made coffee, kissed his cheek like I always did, pretended everything was fine. But inside, I was unraveling. I watched him closely, looking for any sign of guilt. He acted normal. Too normal. Like a man who had nothing to hide. But I knew better. I couldn't just let it go. That night, as he was getting ready for bed, I casually brought up his phone. "You've been really protective of it lately," I said, keeping my voice light. "Is there something you don't want me to see?" He shot me a look, half amused, half annoyed. "What? No. Why would you even ask that?" I shrugged. "I don't know. You've been acting different." "Different how?" "You don't leave your phone out anymore. You take it with you everywhere. And you changed your passcode without telling me." His expression darkened just slightly, a flicker of something before he masked it with indifference. "So what? It's my phone. I don't have to tell you every time I change a setting." Something inside me snapped. "That's not the point," I said, my voice sharper now. "The point is, you used to trust me. You used to be open. Now it feels like you're hiding something." He let out a dry laugh. "Oh my God. You are paranoid." The word stung more than it should have. "I'm not paranoid," I shot back. "I just don't understand why things are suddenly different." He shook his head, running a hand through his hair. "Jesus, can you hear yourself? I'm not doing anything wrong. But you're acting like I'm what? Cheating? Is that what you think?" I hesitated for half a second too long. He scoffed. "Wow, unbelievable." "Then prove it," I said, my heart pounding. "Let me see your messages." He blinked. "Excuse me?" "Just for my own peace of mind," I said. "If you have nothing to hide, then show me." His jaw tightened. "No," and there it was. A single word that told me everything I needed to know. "No," I repeated, my chest tightening. "Why not?" "Because it's my phone," he snapped. "I shouldn't have to prove anything to you. The fact that you're even asking is insane." I felt my hands trembling. It's insane to want reassurance. It's insane to want honesty. It's insane to be this controlling, he shot back. To demand to see my private conversations like I'm some criminal. I stared at him, a mix of anger, heartbreak, and frustration swirling inside me. "You used to let me borrow your phone all the time. You used to laugh when I scrolled through your texts. Now you're acting like I'm invading your personal space just by asking." His face hardened. "Because I don't want to live like this. I don't want to be in a relationship where I have to prove my innocence every time you get a crazy idea in your head." Crazy. Paranoid. Insane. Every word felt like a slap. Like he was twisting this entire situation to make me the problem. I swallowed the lump in my throat. So that's it? I just have to take your word for it? Even when everything feels wrong? Yes, he said simply. Because that's what trust is. I let out a hollow laugh. Funny. I used to trust you completely. But now I'm starting to wonder if that was a mistake. His eyes darkened. If you really think that, maybe you should ask yourself why you're even still here. The room went silent. A challenge. A warning. A dare. My heart pounded in my chest as I stared at him, realizing, maybe for the first time, that we were standing on the edge of something irreversible. I had pushed. And now he was pushing back. And I wasn't sure where that would leave us. I stood there, his last words hanging between us like a blade, sharp and waiting to cut. If you really think that, maybe you should ask yourself why you're even still here. I should have fired back. Should have screamed, cried, demanded answers. But instead, I just stared at him, something inside me settling into place. Because in that moment, I knew. He wasn't trying to fix this. He wasn't trying to comfort me, to reassure me, to prove me wrong. He wasn't even angry that I doubted him, he was just done. And suddenly, so was I. I didn't say another word that night. I crawled into bed, turned off the light, and listened as he let out a frustrated sigh before lying down beside me. We faced opposite directions, miles apart despite being inches away. But I didn't sleep. I lay awake, my mind racing, my heart breaking in slow motion. I had spent weeks, months, convincing myself that I was overreacting. That I was paranoid. That maybe, just maybe, I was the problem. But I wasn't. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't imagining things. I had been right to feel the shift between us. Right to notice how he had changed. Right to see the walls he had built, the distance he had created. And the worst part? It didn't even seem to matter to him. The next morning, I made a decision. I didn't argue. I didn't beg for the truth. I didn't check his phone again. Didn't try to make him admit what I already knew deep down. Instead, I packed a bag. He was in the kitchen when I walked out with it, his eyes narrowing as he saw me. "What are you doing?" I met his gaze, feeling something close to peace settle over me. "Leaving." His face hardened. "You're being dramatic." "No," I said simply. "I'm finally listening to myself." A flicker of something passed through his expression, shock, maybe. Annoyance. But not regret. Not sadness. And that was all I needed to see. I didn't cry. Didn't waver. I just picked up my keys, took one last look at the man I had once trusted with everything, and walked out the door. He didn't stop me. He didn't call after me. And he never tried to bring me back. Because the truth was, he had been letting me go for a long time. I had just been too afraid to see it. But not anymore. I deserved better than secrets. Better than gaslighting. Better than a man who made me feel crazy for noticing the way he was slipping away. And as I drove away, leaving behind the house, the memories, the years I had spent loving him, I realized I wasn't losing anything at all. I was free. And that was the real ending to our story.